Wait, I just realized I'm deaf.
Well, now you're not. Well, that's how we're starting the show, everyone.
Welcome back on the gravel, everybody.
Welcome back.
Oh no, this entire episode is just gonna start with me looking like blankly at the command center over there, wondering where the audio is.
Welcome back on the gravel, everyone.
Good to have you guys here.
Nice little post-Hungary race.
Our first time recording at night again in a long while.
It has been a while. Don't mind it though. I don't mind waking up super early, but I also don't mind doing the show at night. So, welcome in. We've had a fun week of lots and lots of editing. We've done a few shorts that are out on the YouTube, out on the Instagram. Go check that out if you haven't.
Pretty proud of how those came out.
Oh, definitely. Jack was absolutely legendary, and a little fast forward for you. He didn't do too great at Utah. He didn't do bad, or not Utah, St. Louis.
Yeah.
He didn't do bad, but he didn't win, sadly. He got knocked out in the third round. But going over some F1 news, that's why everyone's here. Starting off, we have the announcement that Audi will have BP as their fuel supplier for the F1 debut next year. Now, you searched up and asked
I was
going to
say, yeah. For those of you that don't know, there's 4 different fuel suppliers in F1, that being Shell for the Ferrari-powered cars, Petronas for the Mercedes-powered cars, even though a couple of them are sponsored by other fuel brands. And then it is BP Castrol for Alpine, and then you have ExxonMobil for the Red Bull and AlphaTauri. That's kind of how it shakes up for you.
VCARB, I guess that would be now, but
it just hurts to say sometimes.
I know.
But I need to lock in. It's been almost a year now. VCARB.
I find that really interesting that Mercedes, like some of the other cars, will be sponsored by different fuel suppliers, but they still have to use Petronas just because that's what the engines are. I assume that's why it is. I mean, that makes sense why I assume Haas would be using Shell then too.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Mercedes is designing the engine and they have picked out the fuel that they think is going to work the best,
or design the engine around.
Yeah, why would you not use the same stuff?
Yeah. Moving on, we had some news that shocked the F1 world, but isn't fully
It's so
confirmed
speculative,
yet.
and I think we have talked about this before.
We were talking about it a little bit, but we got a little bit more confirmation. I don't think there's been anything official.
Yeah.
But it's speculating that Esteban Ocon is going to be getting a multi-year contract with the American team Haas through the 2025 season. Right now, it looks like it's going to be a 2+1 year deal, so he has secured a spot on the new regulations, which for most of these drivers, I feel like is the most important aspect of kind of getting their contract into those regs, just so you're guaranteed a spot.
I was going to say those, what's it called? Rumors are kind of coming up more now just because Kevin Magnussen announced his departure from Haas this week. So everybody's trying to scramble and see, who are we going to throw in that Haas now? And people have been talking about Esteban for weeks now, but it is looking more and more likely, and it has me more and more worried.
Yeah.
But that's my 2 cents.
I mean, I think it's fine. I don't love Esteban Ocon, but I guess it's a good guy to get some experience next to if that's what you're wanting to do for them. I don't know, man. I think it's really, really weird. Sticking with Haas, though, we had them announce that their technical partnership between the Foretold and Ferrari has extended through 2028, which is the closest Esteban will ever come to driving a Ferrari.
Yeah, which also surprises me because I know we've heard stuff about Haas potentially partnering with Toyota as well. At some point, that's something I've been seeing a lot.
I was going to say, we mentioned that last week because we saw the Toyota Gazoo racing director or CEO.
Yeah, it was like team principal,
COO
Gazoo,
or something, some high level up. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see in the next few months. I think this kind of time frame where we're at now, I mean, especially with, the elephant in the room of Oscar winning his first race, it really is a very close competition now, which is what we were hoping for 5 weeks ago.
You have 13 races down, 7 different winners in those 13 races. You have 4 different winners in the last 4 races, getting a bit of like 2012 feel, except that Max built a big enough lead at the beginning of the season where that's semi-wrapped up already.
Yeah.
But
people can still fight.
Yeah.
And they will.
Well, funny enough, Lando Norris is still in a position where if he finishes P1 every race and Max finishes P2 every race, Lando Norris will win the championship.
You see how mad he was today at those podiums.
But it was so stupid. And I'll get into that later because I have my
we will definitely get
I have
into
my
it
opinions on how that went down today. But yeah, back to Esteban as we were talking about. He also announced that he's getting his 2021 Alpine that he won with in Hungary. It was something that was written into his contract, and legally he is now able to own it, which I think is really cool. And it is easily, I think both you and I can agree on this, Raven, that it is like the best Alpine livery we have had, hands down.
I saw that car and was shocked that it was an Alpine.
Well, it's also because it was the first Alpine, which is, the one car that they had where they didn't start stripping color off of it for carbon. So it's the one like showcase Alpine that was perfect, and then we've just gone downhill.
Continue.
Oh no, I was just gonna say their testing livery for that year, or it might have been the year before with Renault, was really no, it was a testing livery. That was an all black livery, but it actually looked good. Like the color was put onto the car correctly, to where that's kind of what I feel like seeing the Alpine this year kind of reminds me of, but it was done by a 5-year-old child instead, and just paint splotches on the car. But I'm gonna stop bickering about that.
Keep bickering, that's fine. These races have been hot, not in action, but yes, also in action, but in temperature, bro. I don't know if you saw the weather this week in Hungary, but it was like raining all day Thursday.
Massive floods
last week. And then now it's track temperature of 60 degrees Celsius, 140 for the American folks, but that's hot, dude. That's bad.
Yeah, I couldn't be walking on that. And I feel like your average track temperature is around the 40s.
I was like 45, 55
I wouldn't even say 55. I'd say like mid 40s is average. Even for a place like Bahrain, I never see it higher than, like 50 to 55-ish. Like 55 is the peak. But 60 is crazy.
Something about that was just how fatigued these drivers were going to be. And you could kind of see it from the weekend. I mean, we know Max was extremely tired today for various reasons. I'm sim racing till 4 a.m. But, he can do that. We can't. So,
yeah, he's trying to get to 10K I rating. Let him be.
I don't know. I think there was a chance that a lot of these next few races are going to be quite taxing on drivers just because it's getting to that point in the summer where
it has me. Well, it also just has me really nervous for Qatar, which was
that was
first
something
race in F1 history with mandatory pit stops last year.
Well, that's what I wrote down. Where I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if this weekend we saw some things like Qatar last year, where Logan had to retire because his words himself was, "I can't keep my head up. I can't keep my eyes open. I'm losing conscious."
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, retire the car because obviously your safety is way more important than the chance of points.
I agree.
I don't know. I think the break is going to be somewhat needed. Obviously, I think everyone's going to take full advantage of it, both racers and team.
Yeah.
Those Red Bull guys got to be pretty stressed with everything that's happening.
I agree. I mean, it's the back half of the season is always different in the sense that I feel like it's very much a strict schedule in the first half of the season where it's race, off week, maybe a double header in there. And then once you get to the summer break, you get your 3 weeks off and you come back, do a double header, and then stop, do a double header, then another 3 weeks off, and then a triple header, and then another 3 weeks off, and then a triple header. So it's kind of just jostling them around.
I guess it's also just from like traveling in between those places.
Yeah. I mean, the last triple header of the season is Las Vegas to Qatar to Abu Dhabi. Like that's so unsensible.
That's so far. That's halfway around the world.
It's essentially around the entire world.
That's why I say halfway around that.
But halfway around the world would get you to the other side of the world. Right?
Just wear Qatar and...
It's around the world.
Shut up. No, we're going to get copyright striked.
Hey, you can't copyright strike this beautiful voice.
On Wednesday this week, we remembered some very famous names in the racing world. First off being Juan Manuel Fangio.
Juan Manuel Fangio.
Fangio. I didn't want to say his last name right.
No, you got it. Don't worry.
Obviously, one of the greatest F1 racers of all time, winning, 10 of the first 12 seasons or something?
He was a 5-time world champion.
Yeah. That's hands down all you need, especially in the 60s and 50s when these cars were just quite literally hunks of metal with V10s attached to them. Mm-hmm. It's pretty wild that someone even got that far in a career, but it's very impressive. The other being the famed Jules Bianchi, who was a mentor to Leclerc and a damn fine racer himself. We're very happy that safety has been increased. You know, we've talked about the harness systems, we've talked about the halo, but there's a lot of other stuff in the car that is designed for safety.
Of the car itself.
Yeah, the crash resistant section,
the rollover hoop, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but we remember these guys every day, but you know, when it's the anniversary of their deaths, it is a little bit bitter. So we'll take a moment for that. That's good because we're an audio medium because dead air.
Jules Bianchi would have been in a Ferrari.
On him and Charles.
Yeah.
Lewis would have never been able to go to Ferrari.
I completely agree.
That's a wild thing to think about. Moving back over to F1 world, we got AMR Racing's Mike Crack disclosing that he has in fact evaluated other drivers before securing Lance Stroll. Yeah. Apparently a reason that Lance is staying for now is because how well he gets along with Alonso. I don't know how true that is at all. Crack also says that they work very well together, pushing in the same directions, so we always wanted to do it like that. The hell does that even mean? Where are they pushing? They're not pushing together at all. They have combined, if I'm remembering
Alonso
correctly.
Actually has a rope tied around his stomach.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, that's essentially what it is. They have a combined 69 points, I think, between the two, 68 points or something.
Yeah.
It's pathetic. I'm sorry, but it's pathetic. Look up the 13-minute Lance Stroll crash compilations and tell me that's great teamwork.
I think Raven and I have watched that video like
probably 4 or 5 times
in the past like 2 months.
Yeah,
it's so entertaining. The video gets updated all the time.
It gets updated like every week. I want to bring up the what was it? The signs stuff about him not like the reason he hasn't signed a seat yet. Did you see this?
I potentially, but you might have to jostle my my brain on that.
He was quoted to the media saying, "Sorry, I was busy watching the Euros." But it's like...
Yeah, this guy doesn't care.
He does not care, dude. What were you doing before the Euros started is my question.
I'm driving the car. I was driving the car.
Thank you. I don't know. I think that's really funny. I'm very happy that he got to experience his country winning a World Cup. Or a
major trophy.
A major trophy, I should say. Because we know that America... It's going to be a while before we get that, or a just stroke of luck. But I don't know. We'll see.
The last time the U.S. was on a World Cup podium was in the 50s, or maybe it was the 40s. I can't remember.
Even better.
It was so long ago.
Let's go to Yuki and Max, because this has been a huge talking point.
Yeah.
This has been, I mean, with what happened this weekend with Checo. It kind of rings even more true now. An article from the German news company Auto Motor und Sport that Yuki could be promoted to Red Bull in 2025.
To obviously replace the struggling Perez, who
we know, but 15 points in the last 6 races.
How many? Like almost doubled his points tally today. That's pretty impressive.
It's true. He got 7th place.
But yeah, this would of course allow the potential promotion of Liam Lawson into the V carb. But it really doesn't mean that Daniel Ricciardo is safe either. Because we were talking about last week, he's currently fighting to retain that RB seat, and then you have to think about, especially, I mean, you know how obsessed I am with this, but Isaac Hadjar absolutely dominating the F2 championship right now. Red Bull could realistically bump out both Sergio and Daniel. And then you also have to think about Ayumu Iwasa in Super Formula. He is, I believe, currently leading that championship right now.
I can look that up real quick.
I mean, last time I checked, he was second in the championship. But, I mean, aside from that, you have 3 major talents that are waiting in the wings for 2 old heads who, and I'm not saying that as a derogatory term or anything, but 2 older guys who are definitely past their prime and are showing that they are past their prime. I'd say Sergio more than Daniel right now.
He's currently in 4th.
In 4th, okay. I think he drives for, it's like Mugen.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, 2 guys past their prime that are kind of just wasting time in those seats and
I mean, we've talked
disrupting
about
the validity of the program in and of itself.
We've talked about the Checo situation just being he's a huge money pull.
I know, but I think we are now getting to a point where that is finally being counteracted.
With how much damage he's been doing to the cars?
Not even how much damage he's been doing to the car. It's the fact that he is quite literally selling the Constructors' Championship for that team.
Yeah, they're walking on one leg, which is something that Horner said
And
today.
recently, Max hasn't even been perfect. So the team is kind of crumbling from the inside right now.
We're all here for the Red Bull downfall.
Yes, we are.
So we'll take it. I mean, with all of that, and this all comes after Yuki never getting a Red Bull test, and Horner saying that if he keeps up, he might get a Red Bull test. I believe he finally did get one. I don't know how true that was. I thought I saw something about that. I do know that he got to drive a F1 Red Bull at Goodwood last weekend.
Yeah.
He looked badass doing it. So, I don't know. I mean, Yuki and Max and Red Bull, I feel like
I'm completely okay with that pairing.
Yuki is a good, consistent driver. Yeah, he's not going to win every race. He's not going to put up for a podium every race.
What's funny, I feel like Yuki and Max, they're both extremely consistent. They're also both hotheads.
Yes. And I feel like it'll kind of make them both calmer, if that makes sense. Like, they're both going to have to maintain their composure a lot, and especially if they're teammates in third 1-2 situations. And
I mean, Yuki will also have a bunch of pressure on his back being in a Red Bull that will force him to be more composed regardless of who his teammate is. So I think it would be good for him. You got to give the kid the chance.
I mean, yeah. Do you want to talk about the sad news that we've received this week?
Wait, I didn't even...
Yeah, I'll switch. Yeah, I'll just leave it on your camera for this reaction because that's a genuine reaction that I kind of teared up for while writing this. I'm not going to lie.
What?
Yeah, so many people have probably heard this, but it has finally come to a total conclusion, I will say. Sad moment for anyone who grew up with 3 British dudes talking about cars, silent man in a white suit driving amazing cars, but also some of the worst cars you've ever seen, has come to a somewhat shocking end. After 13 years of doing Top Gear together and all moving on to some personal projects, but continuing the fun with the Grand Tour for a number of years, Richard Hammond, James May, and Jeremy Clarkson have mutually agreed to dissolve their TV partnership and company, W. Chump and Sons. Now, there was a lot of rumors about this when their last episode of the Grand Tour, the one in Zimbabwe, they kind of were talking about how taxing this episode was on them, and
they are getting pretty old at this point.
Old, dude, but like, you know, we watched the episode together. They didn't even get to finish the episode technically.
Yeah.
Because of a war. And so that also...
that was in Mauritania. That's what it was.
But like ultimately that just dampened the plans. They had to stay out in Africa for like an extra 3 weeks because all their flights and stuff were all messed up.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we were saying, these guys are old, dude. They've been doing it for a while. They have lives outside of this. I mean, Clarkson still got his farm and his beer company that is a sponsor of Alpine, funny enough. You got May's Gin Company, and you have Hammond. Hammond, I feel like out of all of them, will probably stay on TV for 100%. A little bit longer. You know, he was doing the stuff with his daughter where he was teaching her how to drive rally and drift and stuff like that. I don't know. It's sad, dude. Like, those videos and those moments of seeing them are just so funny. And
yeah, and I feel like ever since I really, really got into racing and all that kind of stuff, the Grand Tour has become like a mainstay of like shows in the house for me.
It's that, but it's also a huge reason why people love cars. Like, for our generation, yeah, we had the movie Cars, and that definitely did a lot for people.
Yeah.
With young minds soaking up car culture. For other people, it was these guys. Watching them every night, watching them, especially in America, where you don't get the channel that they're on, so you're having to watch their CDs, you're having to watch episodes that are on at like 2 o'clock in the morning. But it was such high quality. It was
it's some of the best cinematography I've seen in television for sure.
Well, it's BBC. They do great filmmaking stuff for television, but just the sense of something so beautiful yet so funny and so niche at the same time.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to come close to that. People will emulate it. Top Gear is still on TV, but it's not as successful. It's like an American show now. I'm pretty sure they have American dudes hosting it.
Well, yeah, the personalities make the entire show.
Yeah.
You know?
That is very true. Let's go back to F1. We kind of mentioned this a little bit.
We kind of are realizing the fact that Haas is kind of in the news.
Haas has been just on fire in the news recently. But K-Mag, like you said earlier, is set to leave at the end of the year. This kind of comes after Ollie was announced and him being like, I don't want to babysit, like straight up to the media. And I find that funny. I get it. You're at a point in your career, you don't want to do that anymore.
I mean, Kevin also has not been to the caliber of driver that Nico has been for the past couple of years. So for them to let Nico go, I feel like it was just in due time. K-Mag was kind of going to be out at some point.
Audi has the chance to do a really funny move now, though.
Yeah, we've been seeing this everywhere.
I really hope that they continue to drive together and just become the new Haas, like this year's Haas, of just like sacrificing one for the other one. I find it so funny.
We can go Hungary 2017 somewhere else.
I'll let you break this one because you were more excited about this than I am.
Yeah, so the last week of November is a very busy weekend at Alethio with Raven's birthday. A few of my friends' birthdays. I feel like a lot of people have November birthdays. My uncle, shout out Uncle Mike. I know you listen every single week. Your birthday's in November. Vegas GP, and now the release of the Netflix series Senna. It drops on the 29th of November. And I've been seeing like ads for it everywhere, and it's been getting me super excited. I mean, I still have people ask me who the heck Ayrton Senna even is. So I'm very happy to be able to have something to show them like this. And I know the Michael Schumacher stuff that they did on Netflix was really good.
Well, it's like you could watch the 3-hour documentary about him, but no one wants to do that unless you're a huge racing fan.
Unless you're a huge racing fan.
Exactly. Like, I watched it. I loved it. But this, personally, I'm very on the fence about.
Well, I'm going to watch it.
I'm going to watch it too, but like, you know, I film person, you know, I hate Netflix stories. I hate Netflix story series because they are so dramatic. They over dramatize everything. They stray away from the truth a lot to tell the story that they want to tell. And yeah, it makes a more enticing end product. But when you're someone who's, I don't want to say like an expert, but you're someone who's such a dedicated fan on this topic, that things will happen and a lot of people are going to go, wait, that's not fully true. But yes, that is. And
I'm hoping they can knock it out because the first and kind of the second season of Drive to Survive on Netflix were actually really good.
yeah,
Like if you went
it
back,
was new.
well, not even that. If you just went back and watched them with your knowledge of the sport, they would what's it called? They would not stray super far from the truth in the first season or two. Like now they're using radio messages from 10 races prior to make up some BS story. So if they really lock into what they're doing, given this is going to be, one series, one season, they still have the chance to knock it out of the park and not mess it up by drawing it out.
I don't know. I'm skeptical. I'm going to be skeptical until it
we
comes
sit
out
down and watch it.
Yeah. But moving on, 2026 regulations have been out. We know this. But
They're getting worse and worse every day.
It's getting worse and worse for the fans, I'll say that.
10 seconds a lap slower.
Yeah. It's going to be brutal. I mean, I don't think that active aero is going to make a difference, personally. Like, from everything that we've seen so far.
To me, it just feels like it's too much of a finicky system.
That too.
Well, it's also just very revolutionary. Like, I wish it was one of those things where, like we talked about with like KERS or even DRS, where it's like one team or like the DOS system, like where one team manufactures it in their own facilities. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is actually crazy. And they do it in the middle of the season. And then it gets banned, or then it gets forced onto all of the teams. Like active aero is just the FIA's idea. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have a team like have some grandiose idea where they're like, this is something that could totally work. Let's put a lot of R&D into,
or like an active aero that changes how strong the diffuser is, or what part of the diffuser is getting air on it.
Yeah,
something like that. That would be interesting, because then it becomes something where it's like, okay, you have to be in this technical guidelines, but there's still a lot of room for you to maneuver and test and research and development to see if there's a better system that happens. And I don't know, with DRS going away, like this overtake mode, manual overtake mode, overdrive mode, I don't know what they're calling it again, but
well, I feel like it's going to be something like IndyCar or Super Formula's push to pass system.
I believe that.
Yeah,
but how are they going to show it?
Oh, like on the graph?
Are you on the grid on the side, like the bug?
I mean, at least with IndyCar, how they do it on theirs is, every once in a while, like with F1, you'll get your time from the leader, your interval, that kind of stuff, tires, that's that information. Sometimes they'll just flash up how many seconds left each driver has a push to pass, and then they'll like put a green highlight over their name if they're actively like using the button. But that's very confusing.
It's going to be a lot. So like, do you put a light on the car that like lights up somewhere that's like, oh, we're in overdrive mode? Like, we can visually see that this is happening.
Yes. So in Super Formula, you know how the F1 cars have their red lights on the back? Those are
the braking lights.
So those are always on during, like when it's wet out, that kind of stuff, braking lights, XYZ. Super Formula has it as where when you're pushing down push to pass, it will blink for the drivers behind you.
So they even know. Okay. Or like flash a different color even, or something like that.
They have a way on the car to let other drivers know that the push to pass system is being used. Or if you're doing like an aerial shot of the car, you can see the light going off.
I like that. I think that'll be enough, but I don't know. It's going to be weird, dude. Like DRS is someone who's started watching the sport with DRS, seeing it go away and being kind of replaced with this test idea for the next 5 years. It kind of sucks, because I like the DRS system. I think it's a really cool system. Oh, on straightaways, if you're within a second of someone, you get a little bit of extra straight line speed. That's awesome.
I do think it was really cool because Williams was the team that actually invented DRS, but they had it to where they could open it at like any time. Because Williams manufactured DRS by themselves as just like a
research and development.
Yeah,
upgrade
that kind
package.
of thing. And then the FIA was like, let's snatch this up and heavily mandate it and that kind of stuff. And now we have the DRS we have now.
Double diffuser situation.
Double diffuser situation, DAS system situation, KERS, like all that kind of stuff.
Even potentially with what Mercedes has come up with as the third suspension element. We don't know yet.
I still want to see how that goes.
I mean, if we're talking about that,
and then you also have the inlets in the
McLaren.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to bring up. Was these pictures have been going around where over the wheel bait, like the
I think it's on the rims.
yeah, because it's getting air into the tires, is what
Yeah.
Mercedes and Ferrari, I believe, are suspecting, because they've been saying that the McLaren car, it's acting different.
Yeah.
And if it's getting there's some amount of airflow going in from an inlet that's going into cooling the tires centrally, that's an awesome system.
Yeah. And I know they're not allowed to use it in the race, but I think they can use it in testing. And the 2 times that they've been checked, they have been taped off. But I don't know if every
Are we throwing duct tape on there, or is this like super?
Well, I actually don't. I don't know what they mean when they're saying tape like that.
Yeah,
because that's a very sneaky idea.
Because I still think it will do something if there's a little tape over it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely will. I don't know. Yeah, just a little Scotch tape on there.
Let's give a congratulation to Lewis taking his. What was I saw a stat today where it's like 200 podiums.
Yes, today was his 200th podium in F1.
Congrats to that. But he also was named or voted one of ESPN's greatest British athletes of the 21st century. We're 24 years into the century, man.
Yeah,
we have 75 more
to go,
years,
man.
There's gonna be a lot more greatest of
There's
centuries.
gonna be 5 more Lewis Hamiltons.
But the picture of him, I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh, I have it pulled up.
He looked so displeased. I'll throw it up on the video right now. But
wait here, guys.
So
I got
bad.
you. Let me rotate the laptop around for you guys. I don't know how well this is gonna work.
So bad. I will throw the picture up for you guys right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't look happy. So, but all he does is he wants to play with Roscoe and Leo.
Me too.
Yeah, same. I think the world would enjoy that. Can we just get 24-hour live stream of them playing together?
Of just Roscoe's bedroom.
While they're like at a race weekend. Like,
yeah, I want to know what happens with the dogs when Lewis brings them and then, has to get in the car and everything, like what they're doing with the dogs.
I mean, I think they have like personnel walking them.
Yeah.
I know for Charles, his girlfriend takes care of it. Like, it's her dog, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And Charles just plays with it.
Yeah, we also had Carlos Sainz revealing that Ferrari was expecting the bouncing issues with the Barcelona upgrades. But with the next round of upgrades around the corner, the team expects the issue to be reduced but not solved. This statement from Ferrari, or just Carlos, honestly means nothing to me.
It means nothing to anything.
Because we've had so many upgrades that have actually been downgrades this season. I'm literally not listening to anything that's coming out of Fred Vasseur's mouth. I can't do it. It's too mentally straining on me.
Oh boy. We'll talk about the biggest thing that
honestly, not even the biggest thing in F1, but just the biggest thing in the world.
One of the
biggest things that happened in the world this week.
This week, yeah.
I mean, Joe Biden just dropped out of the presidential race like 2 hours ago.
And then we had the assassination attempt this week as well. Dude.
Oh shoot, I completely forgot that.
America's had a week, dude. And this was a cherry on top because anyone over the age of 24 now will remember Y2K.
Yeah.
I was not born for this, but I remember learning about this.
Yep.
We had our modern day version of that, and I don't think the reason has fully come out for that. But
I think it was a patch. I think they were releasing a patch.
They released some sort of update that just messed up everything.
Oh, for those of you who were not alive this week, we're talking about the CrowdStrike outage, the worldwide CrowdStrike outage.
And yeah, it affected F1, the CrowdStrike sponsored team Mercedes. Their pit wall this weekend was all blue screens and one camera.
Yeah. It was like plane, like airports, grocery stores, banking accounts.
Yes, everything. Like people were doing, like people at Chipotle had to hand calculate what people were ordering, and management was telling them that if they messed up, the money that they messed up on is coming out of their pay.
That is right in line with Chipotle. Let's be real.
Yeah. Can I get more? Can I get more rice, please?
Can I get double chicken, please?
Chicken.
Oh, shoot, this is coming out of my paycheck.
But I don't know, dude. That's wild that everything stopped. And I don't know. I mean, I don't understand what CrowdStrike really is. It's a software company from my knowledge. But the one thing that shocked me as an American was the fact that the only company that didn't face outages was American Air or Southwest Airlines.
Yeah, Southwest.
Because they run on Windows 3.1. 3.1, dude.
Ancient.
But hey, if it works, don't fix it, you know?
I agree.
Let's move on to the race.
The whole race weekend.
The entire race weekend, we had some rally car, no MotoGP. We had WEC last week, so we'll go over that a little bit since we didn't really get to go over it.
We got Formula Drift to go over. We had F1, F2 to go over. Got a decent bit. Raven and I didn't really catch a bunch.
I caught more of it.
Raven caught. Okay, I watched all of qualifying.
I watched like a third of the race.
I watched like 2 laps of the race.
So
Well,
it was
funny
a rough.
enough.
It was a rough.
Yeah,
morning for us.
practice. Nothing was super crazy in practice this week, except with Charles having his massive incident off of turn 4 and slamming into the wall. And funny enough, he was not the only driver to do this. Emery Cordial also had the exact same incident in the F2 feature race the day later. I think they resurfaced those curbs this week, or not this week, just this year. Because
So they're a little
we also
slidey.
not even slidey, but they're like raised or something because we had the issue with Yuki Tsunoda as well. But
He
into
got floor
quality,
damage, right?
did he? I don't know actually. You know, he got he destroyed the car. But qualifying wise, so we're getting into qualifying, guys. Guess what happens? You all know Sergio Perez bins it in Q1 again. So yeah. Give me Asian F4 championship, please. But yeah, so Sergio just had a bit of a moment, speared off into the wall. And it was happening right as Max was like complaining on the radio to GP. This might have been the worst weekend I've ever seen with Max and
oh my
GP's
God.
relationship.
They were bickering all weekend long.
Yeah, and with the track drying up as well, it caught George Russell and Mercedes out. So they were also knocked out in Q1. They came out first, as it was like nice enough to, go for a lap. He set the P1 lap time, and by the time that 2 minutes that were left were gone, he was sitting P17. It was just over. And then into Q2, nothing crazy in Q2. Q3, we all knew that it was going to be the classic McLarens versus Red Bull for pole position. But it became apparent very quickly that Max was nowhere. The Red Bull is not on the same level as the McLaren in qualifying pace anymore, so it was very much a Norris versus Piastri for pole position. They were both within a couple hundredths of each other, but Yuki Tsunoda kind of saved Lando. He threw on the provisional pole time, and then Yuki Tsunoda has a massive crash. He caught the curb on the long turn 5 at the very end of the hill, and it shot his car up into the wall. It's not even like he slid off the track into the wall. His car got launched into the wall sideways. And unfortunately, there wasn't a super good camera angle of what happened. It was just like that front on. I would have loved to see like from the side of the track just how the thing. But yeah, that ended qualifying. Essentially, nobody had the time for a new run, anything like that. So we have Lando Norris on pole position with Piastri on the front row with him and Max Verstappen behind in P3. Race-wise, Raven, you're going to have to give me a bit of assistance with this.
I got you.
Just because you caught a bit more of it than I did. I did catch the start. That was pretty much what I got. Norris, once again, there's nothing more classic and something you can expect in F1 than a Sergio Perez Q1 bottle job and a Lando Norris pole position bottle job. So In true fashion, Norris loses multiple positions off the start, with Piastri jumping him off the line, and then Max low-key did overtake him off track. So Lando dropped down to P3, but that was eventually given back as Max let him by to avoid any incidents with the stewards. But we found out very quickly that the undercut was huge around the Hungaroring, but that has always been a thing. And teams need to expect this when they go there. But for some reason, and this was my issue that I wanted to talk to you about, because I think this win for Oscar is a bit controversial.
Yeah.
McLaren chose to pit Lando first, even though he was not the lead car. And as you know, in F1, typically the lead driver always gets preferential treatment on pit strategy. Knowing that the undercut was so good and the necessary strategy to have the best race, I don't know why they would have pitted Lando first, because it was just going to screw Oscar over. They said it was to cover from Lewis Hamilton behind, but wouldn't you also want to cover Oscar from Lewis behind as well? Like, I don't understand, what was going through the McLaren pit wall with that. But after everything shook out, it put Lando in the lead of the race. And you had, for lap after lap after lap, the team was just continuously calling for Lando to swap positions with Oscar to reestablish the order of Oscar leading the race. And finally, 3 laps from the end, Lando's engineer came on the radio and was just so blunt with him. And he was like, you need Oscar to win the championship, and you need this team to win the championship. If you are not doing this, you are not a part of the team. It was very...
It was
direct, but it was not rude or anything like that.
It was
what needed to be said.
It was a team order, which at the end of the day, you have to listen to the team unless you want to be a prick.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot about this today. The same thing kind of happened in the last 2 races where they kind of sacrificed Oscar for Lando to win and for Lando to get on podium the last 2 races.
Yeah.
So
and
I
think it's
fair.
I think it's completely fair.
If within a team, if you are saying, "Hey, you win one, I win one," and then you go out and win one after I do what I need to do and sacrifice and play for the team game, I'm going to expect that I get my win. And
I'm just going to expect that the same is given up for me.
Yeah.
I guess.
And I feel like for Oscar, it was like Oscar played the team role. Oscar doesn't mind
the team role all season.
He doesn't mind playing the team role. From what it seems like, he looks like he likes to be the team guy.
No, Oscar wants to win a championship. Let's be real.
Everyone wants to win a championship, but how are you going to win a championship? Play through the team until you can, until you are the star. It's just one of those things. I'm glad that he won. Don't get me wrong. I'm wearing my McLaren shirt because they won today.
But it is also making me very worried about Lando. His attitude recently has not been the best.
He's kind of putting himself on the pedestal of being like, I don't want to say how Max kind of was when he first started winning a bunch of races, but in the sense of like, oh, I'm finally up here and competing. I can venture out and maybe stop being the nice, sweet-hearted guy that everyone knows him to be.
Yeah.
It's hard, dude. It's a hard thing to do. You have 2 people going for a single spot. It comes down to performance. And hey, there's 24 races.
Mm-hmm.
If they sat them down and were like, we're going to treat you essentially every other race as as the lead spot.
Yeah.
I think it's fair that you play your role and you take your 12 wins.
I agree.
That's my 2 cents on it.
Consistency wins the championship,
Yes.
But it's crazy now because we now have both McLarens have won a race, both Ferrari drivers have won a race, both Mercedes drivers have won a race. Sergio Perez still hasn't won a race this season. This guy has not finished on the podium since round 5.
Yeah. He's been out-qualified by Logan again.
He is, in the past 6 races, Sergio is down 2-4 against Logan.
He's done it 8 times in his career now.
It's just impeccable. This was also the first. This is the first time in so long that it's been 3 races since Max has won a race.
Oh my God. We were talking about it last week about it.
How
long
it's just
it was for 2.
Exactly. And now we're at 3. Like, this is very off course. But you know what is on course? The annual Max Verstappen Lewis Hamilton collision. Yeah, it was like really close to the end, and Max is very much fighting for a podium that he deserves to be on, just with the performance of the car and how he's been doing all weekend. But he sends this crazy dive bomb on Lewis while they're both overtaking Alex Albon, or they're both lapping Alex Albon. He tries this crazy dive bomb, can't like turn the car at all, and then he clips Lewis's front left tire or front right tire with his back left, and then just flies in the air.
So I read the steward form for this,
Yeah,
and they get all the telemetry and all the camera angles that show if they're really within their racing line or not. And so what happened was both of them overtook Carlos. And because of that...
Never mind, sorry.
Because of that, Max had DRS. So Max was going faster. He hit the same brake point at the same point. So he's going faster into the braking zone. He locks his front tires. Lewis has already been doing an outside to the inside kind of apex, just because that's how that was his racing line. He didn't go out of his racing line. He stuck his racing line almost to a T. Max almost did the same thing. He just was carrying too much speed into it and locked up. Yeah. That's all this was he locked up.
No, the stewards were definitely right to say that it was a racing incident.
It was a racing incident. It wasn't 2 years ago and
like malice intent or anything like that.
And you can blame it on Max too, to a degree where he was streaming till 3 a.m, race time. But
yeah,
come on, man. Like, I understand. Trust me, I love video games. If it was me, I would be playing video games whenever I could when I'm not working. I don't have that capability. And if it's bringing a thing on your performance, this kind of relates to Kyler Murray or any athlete who streams and has a persona online. It's if you're not spending time doing what you're doing, being an athlete, it's going to somewhat diminish your skill. And I don't fully believe that because, there are plenty of the best athletes play video games. But this mentality of like, he's not racing F1 cars. He's racing other cars. And so if he's, falling asleep to the idea of racing a GT3 car and then waking up in the morning and kind of still having that in your brain of being like, I'm driving a GT. Oh, wait, this is an F1 car. You're going to make some mistakes like that. Just from all the skills and all the overlapping.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with rally. Like, a bunch of those guys were former circuit racers. And so when there are circuit stages on the calendar, they do really well.
Completely agree with you there. Because it's like, even when I do iRacing, because my two favorite categories to race in are GT3s and Formula 4 cars. To switch between those very quickly is like it completely messes with me.
Oh yeah,
it's a completely different steering angle on the radius, like turning radius on the wheel. The braking points are completely different, all that kind of stuff. So I can see where that comes from. But yeah, we end up getting Oscar Piastri winning the race today with Lando Norris P2, Lewis Hamilton P3. Down the points, it goes Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, Perez, Russell, Tsunoda, very impressive, and Lance Stroll. Alonso just missed out in P11. Russell took the fastest lap to snatch 5 points for Mercedes. Championship-wise, this was a very big race in terms of the championship. Both the drivers and constructors championships gaps both reduced. In the Drivers' Championship, it reduced by 8 points. Norris now sits 76 points behind Max Verstappen. And in the Constructors' Championship, it decreased by a massive 27 points. McLaren now only sitting 51 points behind Red Bull. If you had 2 more weekends like this in a row, McLaren's leading the Constructors' Championship.
Just shows why the Perez debacle is
so huge.
So huge because, if you get a V-carb guy in there, kind of looks a little better.
You potentially get this Japanese V-carb guy in the car.
You get the tiny guy from Japan to, race your car. He's going to look pretty cool doing it, and he's really good at what he does.
Exactly.
And, look at his eyes in the visor. He's so cute.
All right,
He's so
we're going
cute.
down a step to Formula 2. My goodness.
He's so cute.
Round 9 of the championship, round 9 of 14, the Hungarian GP weekend. Lo and behold, we've been talking about that the entire time. It was a close fight for pole position in qualifying, with P2 in the championship, Paul Aaron taking the P1 spot with a time of 1:30.028, with Enzo Fittipaldi close behind, only 600ths off, and championship leader Isaac Hadjar qualifying in P3. P9 and 10 were taken by Richard Vachor and Kush Miney, putting them on the front row for the reverse grid sprint. It was a good getaway for both Vachor and Miney, both holding their respective positions, and an insanely good start from Kimi Antonelli to take P3 on the soft tires. With the sprint, it was about 50-50 split of who went on the soft tires and who went on the hard tires. It was found out very quickly that the hard tire was definitely the one that you wanted to be on. So for a majority of the race, it was a fight between Antonelli on the softs and Vachor on the hards. Kimi seized the lead of the race on lap 4, and he built a pretty sizable gap to fight against the dying soft tires. But once we got to lap 17 of 28, his tires like fully fell off. He was locking up at every single corner, and he finally went wide and let both Vachor and Miney slip through, dipped into the pit lane, drops to 20th. It's over for Kimi Antonelli. It's now Kush Miney and Richard Vachor fighting to the end of the race, but honestly, Richard Vachor controlled to take P1 on the road until his classic post-race disqualification win BS that happens all the time. This is his 3rd disqualification from a win and his 4th disqualification from a podium in Formula 2. He is a 3-time winner in Formula 2. Without the disqualifications, he would be a 6-time winner. It's incredible. But this promoted Kush Miney to P1 with Victor Martins P2 and championship leader Isaac Hadjar in P3. Feature race was way more exciting, as it usually is. But there was a very interesting issue before the race even began, with Isaac Hadjar not even making it out of the pit lane to take the grid in time. I think it was just a miscommunication with the team. But this demoted him from P3 to a pit lane start, effectively ruining any point scoring chances that he had. However, Aaron would not take this gift from God well, dropping from P1 to P7 4 corners into the race after one of the most horrendous starts I've seen in a minute, with then Victor Martins having one of the best starts I've seen in a minute, going from P5 to P1 off the line. Antonelli had a phenomenal overtake and kind of multi-corner scrap with Zane Maloney over P4, after which Aaron, he's climbing his way back up, tried getting past, and just slams into the back of Zane Maloney, and they both retired from the race. So it was not looking good for either Isaac Hadjar or Paul Aaron in this feature race. It was just kind of a nightmare for the both of them. But yeah, they both retired from the race. 22 laps in, we had Marie Cordial, like I mentioned earlier, having a massive crash into the wall. Kind of reminded me of the Charles Leclerc crash in FP2. Took a bit too much curb, brought out the safety car, but it majorly assisted Kimi Antonelli with a cheap pit stop that saw him come out P5 on the softs to chase down the rest on the hard tires. And the race had been going on for so long that it ended up getting shortened into a timed race. So Antonelli had about 16 minutes to overtake the 4 cars ahead of him. It was light work. Quickly picked off all 4 of them with 11 minutes left to go. Built a gap of 12 seconds. Set the fastest lap. Took his first feature race win in FIA Formula 2. Moving up to 6th place in the championship. But yeah, Antonelli P1, Victor Martins P2, and Richard Vachor P3 to dampen some of the dread from the previous day's disqualification. At least he got one podium this weekend. But with the conclusion of the 9th round of the season, Isaac Hadjar extended his lead over Paul Aaron by only a factor of 4 points, just because of how bad those feature races were. He's now 18 points ahead of Paul Aaron. You have Hadjar on 140, Aaron on 122, and you have Gabriel Bortoleto, a sneaky 110. He's definitely in the fight for this championship. But once again, Formula 2 never disappoints.
Going over to Rally Latvia, which was very exciting to watch. Day 1 started with the super stage like normal. Takamoto Katsuda did very well in the as a former circuit racer. Rovanpera also did very well on the circuit style course after he secured his last win in motorsport with Porsche at Imola recently. So congrats to him for that. Ogier is back after missing Poland with a concussion, securing 3rd after Thursday. Martin Sesk, after a great WRC Poland with the hybridless Puma Ford, returns with hybrid power, this time securing fourth, only zero point 0.5 seconds behind Neuville and Ogier, who were 2.5 seconds behind Rovanperä. The ice cold Finn continued his dominance into day 2 with the opening stage, continuing on to be 15.7 seconds in front of Sesks after Friday. Sesks did very well himself, only 3.3 seconds behind after the 27.5 kilometer stage 3 Tukums. It was awesome to watch, but he continued to climb. Tanak had an okay second day until the last stage where he fell off a little bit. In the end of the day interview, he was explaining how the car is a little unpredictable in the moment and hard to find a flowing state in between corners and straights. Championship leader Neuville dropped 40 seconds on Rovanperä early on in the day, resulting in him being on the bottom of the board. Day 3 was probably the most interesting day of the weekend, with Rovanperä reaching the 200 career stage wins in WRC and still leading by over a half a minute over the others. It was a huge battle for second on day 3 between Ogier and Sesks, who ended the day only 4.7 seconds behind the Frenchman. In stage 12, Katsuta had a mistake that ran him off the road, falling 3 places to 7th. The highlight of this weekend for Rally was when Tanak ran into an inflatable archway after Evans just clipped the sign and ran.
Wait, I think I saw this.
And so they had to stop the event. They had to stop everyone from going, and the people that were behind them during that stage stopped and helped get all the stuff off the car, and it was just very funny to see.
Yeah.
Tanak gave it all, even saying that he races for Sundays, gaining 15 seconds before Sesk sadly had an issue. Man, he secured third, but dropped down to 7th or 8th at the end of the thing. But other than that, not too much happened on Sunday. This has just been a huge race between Hyundai and Toyota for the Constructors' Cup. I think there's something like 17 points differentiating the two. So
Yeah.
pretty
With not many more events to go either.
I believe there's 4.
Yeah.
4 or 5. For WEC, we had Sao Paulo last week. Toyota Gazoo won with Porsche Penske getting the double podium for the hypercars, and Manthe Pure Racing winning the LMGT3 category pretty dominantly
Yeah.
from what I've heard.
Dude, I was gonna say Sao Paulo. With my brother and my friends visiting last week, one of the mornings we got up on Sunday morning, we just had Sao Paulo playing in the living room. It was I want to say it was a very calm race the entire way through. The ability to build up a gap really didn't surprise me. And it was also the first time racing at Sao Paulo in a minute. It was fun to watch. It wasn't super crazy, I guess.
Yeah. Going to the MotoGP real quick. There was no race, as we have no races until beginning of August, I want to say, or end of July. But some news that did come out of MotoGP was the Kazakhstan GP is going to be replaced by a second Misano round after 3 years of being postponed because the track in Sokol,
I think it's
Sokol, I'm not sure.
Sokol?
Something like that, I'm pretty sure.
I didn't even know they had a Kazakhstan GP.
Yes. Well, in theory, they did. But the track is still not ready after 3 years. This has now shortened the entire calendar by 2 events now after India and Argentina were both canceled earlier this year. I'm glad that they did throw in a second round at a track just to fulfill that racing. It sucks to see, but it sucks for the guys racing as well. I mean, overall, this is a business, and if a track isn't ready, I'm looking at you, Vegas F1.
Hey, come on, it wasn't that bad. I mean, hey, the drain hole covers were horrible last year, but
they were bad.
All right.
It was bad. It'll be better this year, I know. Ending it off with Formula Drift. Jack unfortunately got out in the 3rd round. Connor O'Sullivan took the win for Formula Pro for Pro Prospect. With Tommy Lemire right on his tail. He now leads the overall standings 242 to 240.
Yeah, it's close.
But again, there's a lot of competition in Pro Series and in FD Pro. We are learning how to watch it.
Very much still trying to learn.
We are learning how to watch it and like how to properly
analyze what's going on.
Exactly. Adam LZ had a huge crash. I watched him on YouTube a few times, but it's always sad to see someone like that. But that car will be back for the next event. We already know that. That is all. I've been actively reaching out to people to secure us another interview, but it's hard to interview people in the racing world during races.
Yeah.
Everyone I reached out to was working this weekend. So I'm hoping to get a response this week. Hopefully we can record next week an interview and get that out for you guys. It's really, really fun. I enjoyed a lot.
As do I. It's fun to make the shorts on them too.
Yeah, the shorts were going to be...
Those are also really easy to do.
Exactly. And that's why...
Interviewing somebody else.
Yes. When you're doing an interview, shorts are super easy because they kind of give you those moments already. When we're trying to make, shorts on the show, it's a little harder because we have to get things that, A, look good because we record differently when we do this and when we do interviews. So we have to make it look somewhat similar, but that's hard when we don't have access to both cameras. I have to manually click between the two. So it is what it is, but it's beneficial. But we'll get some more short content for you guys. It's been super, super fun recording for you guys today. It's getting a little late here. We're going to go over to the bar right down the street and have a drink after all the work here is done. But Oliver, you know the drill.
Don't stop the party.
Thanks to all the audio listeners. Please rate 5 stars wherever you're getting your podcast from. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon even. Google has podcasts too. So take it away, Oliver.
Subscribe right here on the left side of my head. Last week's video right here on the right side of my head. I appreciate you guys popping out as always. It's always fun to record out here on the gravel. But yeah, as Raven said, rate 5 stars, drop a like, wherever you guys are at. Appreciate y'all. Take care.